big match, big dynamics. Now, we've been seeing this matchup for as long as Giratina has come out. And both these decks, pretty much since their release. I mean, Giratina more, and I guess Mew had a period too where it wasn't necessarily tier 1 in the limelight, but these decks have been on and off the main stage since their release. And a lot has changed, though, about this matchup with some key cards and changing, but DTE Mew versus Giratina, few things to look out for, but really one card that stands in my mind right away. Both players are playing it, but it feels like Path to the Peak is a card that's going to have a lot more of an impact on Isaiah's side than on James's side.
Certainly, there's not a lot that James can really shut down, right? There's the Radiant Greninja, and that's pretty much it, but Isaiah shuts down James's whole engine. So it'll be interesting to see how James can play around this, adapt to this. He is playing a high count of Lost Vacuum and also a copy of Town Store, so 5 Path to the Peak counters. That's a pretty solid amount.
Lots indeed. Path is one of those cards that you can kind of just get rid of as if it were Battle VIP Path, sort of toss it away. It will be really interesting to see how this hand opens up. The early game dynamic, I feel like, is one that's super important in this matchup because of both decks' sort of aggression, but more importantly, Mew, DTE Mew specifically, having the strongest turn 2, especially if it wins the flip going first.
Yeah, certainly. Going first, gonna be pretty impactful for both players. They all reflipped. I don't know who is going first. I think we have a mulligan in favor of James as well, as we have both players setting up. And I don't know, like, how would you rate, like, who would you favor this matchup? Taking away the Path to the Peak dynamic, who do you think has like the advantage here between Mew and Giratina?
I would 100% give it to Mew VMAX. It's one of those decks that just, you kind of just pressure Giratina over and over again, and with the combination of Psychic Leap, hitting it with Cram, yeah, it's okay, but they can always just Power Tablet, get it out, bring a Mew VMAX up, and I mean, on paper, yes, a 2-prizer into a 3-prizer is not so good, but the aggression of Mew VMAX, especially against a deck that wants to fall behind, it doesn't want to fall behind specifically in this matchup, Giratina, that is.
Now, nothing too big prize. The 2 Poke Gears can be a little detrimental to Isaiah's consistency overall in the deck, but perhaps the Cramorant. The Cramorant getting that hit into the Mew VMAX early on can help you set up for a Lost Impact KO, right? You do have Star Requiem to get a one-shot, eliminate a Mew VMAX, but taking that second KO is usually what Giratina struggles with.
Looks like our players are set up and ready. Of course, 5 more Swiss rounds to go today. Players really looking to not just get to those 19 match points, but more than that, because I don't even know if 35 points will be set. Maybe 36 is bubble potentially for how many players we have. So you need to win at least 11, 12 games out of your 16 rounds to be able to advance to the top cut tomorrow.
That's a lot of wins and very, very little margin for error for sure. But I mean, what do you expect, right? These are the big tournaments. If you're here to do well, you have to win out a lot more than losing. So 36 match points. These players are definitely in the running though, right?
Off to an XO record and off to a great start here. I hope Isaiah starting things off. Did top deck come fade. It's not a great feeling when that is, of course, your optimal starting Pokemon, but gets it down nevertheless. And I think there is a switch card, but not much else going on in this hand. And this is a scary position to be in. Big flower selecting 2 cards. Is there a battle pass, some way to get Pokemon into play? There is a Nest Ball, it looks like. I feel like that has to be an instant grab. You don't really know what version of Mew you're playing against, and if it is that fusion, Meloetta is really not a card you want to play down in this matchup, but if it means taking a 2-prize knockout turn 1, of course you're going to do it.
Yeah, certainly. Now, I feel like we're going to see a thorough check here by Isaiah on the prize cards, the energies, and the Pokemon being pulled to the front. He's going to find that Cramorant is not available, but as you mentioned, right now, his priority is finding a Colress, right? Or getting close to one. The 2 Pokegears being prized could be problematic, but all 4 Colress are available. So it's up to Isaiah. He will have 2 turns to really dig for that Colress.
Yeah, it's all going to be about Star Requiem, getting up to those 10 cards in the Lost Zone. It's the best attack you have in your deck, so you got to play to your out. Now, there are a few options here to think about in terms of this Nest Ball. Do you go for something like Radiant Greninja here and play along with that, assuming you have energy in hand, or is it really just getting down another Comfey, or even getting another Giratina into play?
Yeah, certainly. Double Giratina going to be very important. James will immediately try to target down those Giratinas. They are the only threat, right? The Sableye spread damage, not really impactful, and Cramorant not being available. So it's going to come down to all these Giratinas. But without Colress, the Giratinas don't even matter. So getting to 10, digging, perhaps establishing the Greninja, and maybe Isaiah will end up delaying a little bit the path to a peak. I feel like path to a peak is at its best when it's combined with Roxanne. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. And another big thing, too, is we talk about Path, right? Path, Roxanne. One thing I'm going to keep my eye on here for sure is we see another flower selecting come in, getting some more cards. Still, Battle VIP Pass is a great card you want to find on your first turn. As I was saying, though, for James, it's can you preserve that VSTAR power for as long as possible? Because in this matchup, it essentially, if you can have it be, is your guaranteed get out of jail free card from Path to Peak.
Yeah, for sure. No way to stop it. There's no lost vacuum by Isaiah, right, to eliminate that V-Star. And that's always a goal with Mew. That's always what you want to do. So James with a pretty strong hand, but also RNG dependent, I guess, a little bit, because there's 2 Cramomatics right there, which, if you flip heads, yeah, James could end up with a very powerful board. But a couple tails flips, yeah, or there is an Ultra Ball as well. I feel like it's an important thing to do to balance between Ultra Balling away your Cramomatics to guarantee 1 Pokemon, or the 50-50 chance at 2 or 0. It's always a thing on players' minds to determine that.
So James is setting up. Does have the 1 copy of Alessa Sparkle in hand. Not something we see typically in this deck, but that makes me think, Pablo, you are running those 2 Fusion Strike energy. You can accelerate that. Is there ever a world where usually this DT Mew deck doesn't attack going first or going second on the first turn, that you want to put these into play to maybe give yourself the opportunity to double turbo and play a power tablet and just start taking some prizes as quickly as possible?
I mean, definitely powerful strategy against low HP things like Comfey, right? Or even Ralt. So having that option is pretty cool to see. And yeah, as you mentioned, we must specify, this is not the usual Fusion Strike Mew, right? There's only a single copy of Alessa, 2 copies of Fusion Strike Energy as we see the heads flip. Very nice.
And this will almost certainly grab Battle VIP Pass exactly what you want to play on the first turn of the game. And I mean, yeah, there are the 2 sides. Your opponent did just build up a pretty big hand using those flower selecting abilities, didn't play too much. So there is, of course, Judge in this deck, and I feel like that's also a good supporter card. But now really comes the choice. You did just get rid of one of those Lost Vacuum. It's a card you kind of want to keep around for as long as possible. And I don't really... keeping the Path to the Peak, but I don't really know if that's a card that I'd necessarily value keeping around in this matchup.
Agreed. I think that's a little bit of a tunnel vision, right? My deck wants to judge Path a lot and deny resources, but in the grand scheme of things, you're only denying Greninja, so I really would have loved to see that Path go away, play the Alessa Sparkle, maximize your Genesects, maximize your draw, and maybe sneak in a Psychic Leap KO on that Comfey.
Yeah, double turbo did come down, so it will require a power tablet. That's a really important resource in this matchup, right? You want to hit that magic 280 or 220 on the Giratina. You only have sort of a limited amount of really oomph on your attacks here. There isn't really anything like the... Or is there even anything like Choice Belt in this deck? I'm not sure I see any... Wow, no Choice Belt at all. Just playing the 2 copies of Box of Disasters. That is a card that is really, really exceptional against this Giratina matchup, and James will definitely be missing it here in this matchup.
Yeah, really respecting Charizard, but you have to give up on something, right? You can't play more than 60 cards, therefore, whatever you end up choosing to play, it comes at a cost. And in the case of James, he's trying to protect against Spiritomb, he's trying to protect against Charizard, and he's giving up a little bit of raw power against these V-Pokemon, which, as we get new sets and more powerful Pokemon EX get released, I think it makes sense, right? Choice Belt was already like at a 1-off count in Mew. Now we're seeing it at 0, perhaps. Yeah, I think it's a normal evolution of the progress of the metagame as sets are coming out.
Mew's come a long way. It's evolved a lot. I remember when this deck played Latios originally to play things around.
Well, we're in a big VMAX format,
of
course.
Of course. So lots of evolution, but I think Mew will only go down until you cannot play it anymore for tournaments, and enjoying the limelight for the last few months that it has in the standard format. There is that important Forest Steel Zone. Does come down onto this Genesect, and did also find a Judge, so that's a great supporter, especially seeing Alessa get discarded right away, and will be the choice there for James. Isaiah holding on to the Colress's Experiment, so had the perfect supporter for next turn, also had the V-Star, so this will be a big turn for Isaiah. Can he get more Giratina down, but more importantly, can there be more cards in the Lost Zone to threaten potentially Lost Impact or even Star Requiem in the upcoming turns?
Indeed, and I feel like James had a spare Battle VIP Pass in his hand. As a Mew player, whenever you have a spare Battle VIP Pass on your first turn, you know you're off to the races, right? Which is pretty fantastic. And yeah, have to see what Isaiah draws. I think his goal or his ideal would definitely be to bench 2 more Giratinas, right? Because you know James is going to start being aggressive next turn. He's really like, he needs to retreat, right? He has the 4 Seal Stone. He still has 1 Genesect left over. He's going to end the turn with a solid hand. And Isaiah's under a lot of pressure, even though it's only been 1 turn for James.
Great hand for next turn. VMAX, DTE, Power Tablet, and can finish it off with 2 more. Just find the Town Store. So, I mean, you've got pretty much everything you want next turn. Counter Stadium, double Power Tablet, and yeah, it looks like James going to pass. Did opt to set the board up with 3 Mew, 3 Genesect. Pablo, why is that so important against these Lost Zone decks?
So you always want to have the option to Psychic Leap, right? You want to be able to take off the 3-price Pokemon liability that you sometimes have, so your opponent can't take a knockout on them and be able to win the game by knocking out 2 VMAX Pokemon, right? So giving yourself that option. And, I mean, 3 Genesect is usually good enough, right? It's very rare when you really need to dig for all the time.
So no Colress here for Isaiah in this new hand. Does have Nest Ball. Giratina V queued up to the top of the deck. As we're talking about, so important to get these down, especially when you're playing against such an aggressive deck like Mew VMAX. And there's a few little sequencing things to think about. Raiding Greninja and energy cards in the hand, but can't stress it enough. It's all going to come down to, can Isaiah find Colress? Can Isaiah get these Giratina V-Star evolved? Because the less HP they have, the easier they're knocked out, and the more power tablets you can save down the line, the more feasible it comes to later on in the game take those knockouts onto those V-Stars.
Indeed, very key. And I feel like if Isaiah isn't able to find that specific Colress, he might be forced into an Abyss Seeking, which is essentially a Colress, right? One less card, but you get to see a Colress, but then that would really save James the trouble of finding Boss's Orders and could actually take a knockout on one of those Giratinas combined with a Judge again.
Concealed cards being used. Let's find that Jet Energy. That's going to be perfect either to allow another Comfey to Flower Select or something else to go down. We will see another Jet Energy hit the Lost Zone, so up to 3 cards right now for Isaiah. Slowly building up to those milestones. 7 cards in the Lost Zone for Mirage Gate and 10 cards in the Lost Zone for the Star Requiem. Did find the Colress's Experiment off of that flower selecting. Let's find Giratina V-Star Path to the Peak. Some great additions to this hand. Getting this evolved, it's got to be your priority right away. But this is sort of the cost of Colress every time. You see 5 good cards, 2 of them have to go away.
Yeah, I think it's always important to note how when you talk to Pokemon players, right, they're always like, oh, the Lost Zone can be a little difficult to play because you Lost Zone resources, right? Well, you're never going to play bad cards on purpose to Lost Zone them away, right? So that your Colress decision is easier. You're always, outside of the first turn, you're always going to see really good cards other than Battle VIP Pass. So these decisions are always very difficult sometimes, and building up to a Lost Zone is your priority, and you need to factor in the resources that you have lost along with the ones that you have available, and that's what usually will help you determine what to Lost Zone away.
And a smart play for there from Isaiah. I mean, Path is an important card, but actually chose to take the 3rd Comfey, and this shows his experience in this matchup, not valuing attacking at this point in the game with Cramorant and just saying, hey, I might not even attack, but if I can Flower Select in here, that's all I need.
Yeah, I need to build this Lost Zone, right? That's the priority. Getting to 10, dealing with your VMAX, and then hopefully Lost Impacting into another one and finishing off with either Greninja's attack, Sableye attack, you know.
Counter Catcher, so many different options. Boss's Orders does hit the Lost Zone. Is playing those the 1 copy of Counter Catcher, going for 2 Boss. I've sort of seen people be back and forth on how you want to play as a more consistent option versus the guaranteed Gust of the supporter, and then only being able to play that Counter Catcher when you're behind on prizes.
Indeed. What do you like playing, though? I personally really like the 2 Counter Catchers.
Exactly.
There's a combination of Counter Catcher plus Roxanne with Sableye spreading out the damage can be huge.
I mean, this deck is postered to fall behind. It's so hard to really expect yourself to get these quick Lost impacts and keep the pace up. So for me, playing Colress and finding Gust or playing Roxanne and finding Gust is good, but Isaiah's been playing this deck for a while, understands the consistent power of Boss's Orders. Both have their strengths, both have their weaknesses, and see how this hand looks so far. Does have the Mew VMAX. Going to choose to evolve into the benched Mew VMAX. I think this is smart. I mean, you never know if your opponent's playing something like Choice Belt in their deck, so there's always a weird scenario where you can like threaten a weird sort of like back and forth, but it will also be the Hisuian Heavy Ball plate, so James will get a clear look at all those prize cards. As we mentioned earlier on in the game, nothing too relevant. The question now is, how do you play this hand out to maximize? So there is the power tablet in hand.
I think it was very well done by James that he failed the heavy ball. There was a MUV to be grabbed there. However, you don't have to grab it, and he's just trying to clean up his hand right now. His goal is to make sure that with the power tablet, he's able to get a knockout on the Giratina. But as we've mentioned, the lack of choice build could make it a little difficult to deal with the 280 HP of Giratina VSTAR. I think that's James's biggest hurdle right now. If he spends the power tablets knocking out this first Giratina, that's 3 left over, and he needs all 3 to be able to take that down.
Another interesting choice there from James. Chose to attach the double turbo energy to a fresh Mew. Maybe you would like to see that on the Genesect. It kind of just gives you the guaranteed pivot, and that's one more piece that needs. Power tablet's already there. The VMAX and double turbo are there, but you still got to find boss. You still got to find a way to move it, and hopefully do all of that without using your VSTAR power, so you have that sort of fail-safe, that fallback later on. Does draw into boss off the Fusion Strike system. Ultra Ball as well to thin this hand out, and just be the chromatic. So
yeah, James does play 3 switching cards and gets the heads flip. Incredible. So we'll be able to conserve that VSTAR that you've been mentioning, how important it is to make sure that you have that out against the path to a peak eventually.
And looking at James's list, is playing the 1 copy of Switch, 2 copies of Switch, and the 1 copy of Escape Rope. Now, in this position, I think Escape Rope is like technically a little bit better to play if you're going to play boss, because if your opponent ever Star Requiems, you can attack. But as we just saw with that heavy ball, it is in the prize cards for James, so it doesn't have access to that. It will just be the Switch. The boss's orders onto the Giratina V. Now, of course, the Giratina V-Star is the bigger threat, but it is just so much better to go after the Giratina V because of that lower HP.
Indeed. Gives you more bang for your buck, if you will, right? Get more out of your resources, and you still have the 3 other power tablets to hopefully take down the Giratina V-Star. And right now, James not really missing anything for this turn, right? So every action that is taking place right now is in preparation for next turn. Deck thinning, getting rid of useless cards like that Battle VIP pass, the Fusion Energy, which I think James is now banking on the fact that Isaiah is probably not playing Spirit Tome. If it was available, it certainly would have hit the field by now. So I like that discard.
But one card I really wish keeps getting discarded is that Path to the Peak. I mean, it seems kind of counterintuitive, but I mean, even keeping Battle Pass over it is fine because it at least gives you a Chromatic out to go ahead and discard. And
yeah, that's true.
I mean, besides that, though, some minor things here and there, some energies, some stadiums, but besides that, exactly what you want to see here for James. Turn 2, boss's orders, knock out Giratina V, taking an early lead, and the clock is immediately on Isaiah. There are 7 cards in the Lost Zone, so can get to Star Requiem, but you've got to find some backup pieces. You still got to find another Chorus, and I mean, this hand is not looking too great. You do have Mirage Gate, so if the Lost Zone is at 7, which it looks like it is, you could just go and play this, get these energies out, because you need to make sure your draws are as perfect and refined as possible to find Chorus. Whoa, big double Chorus off of the concealed cards. Exactly what you want to see here for Isaiah.
Now, I think he is holding a Jet Energy, so he could have been able to get to 10 by using all 3 Comp Phase and Mirage Gating to get to 10. So I think what's in Isaiah's mind is definitely finding another Giratina, right? Because he has a guaranteed KO on the VMAX with the V-Star attack, but what happens after? Yeah, a field of Comp Phase and Greninjas is just not going to be good enough. So very important to make sure that not only he accomplishes the 1-hit KO, but he has a backup Giratina to fall into potentially.
Important Super Rod being played there too. There were no Grass Energy left in the deck, so able to get those 2 out, and usually something you don't see, but so important in this matchup, putting Giratina V back into the deck, trying to maximize as many outs. Isaiah is playing 3 copies of Death Ball, and that's it. And I think we've seen 1 get played and 1 get lost zone. So I think there's 1 more left in the deck. So you've either got to just find the Giratina V as is or find that 1 extra searching card. If you don't get Giratina V down, yeah, great. Start Requiem can take the knockout, but what is your follow-up attacker after that?
What is your follow-up attacker? And if we do get to that point, if James is able to use that Psychic Leap that we talked about in the beginning by having those extra Mews on the bench, then what do you do after, right? The Lost Impact attack is very inefficient in terms of resources. So big call risk here. We'll have to see if the Giratina is found, but the late game plan is looking a little difficult for Isaiah here.
There is a Counter Catcher and Jet Energy. Flower selecting yet to be used, so technically 2 more ways to search through. Easy choice there also off the Chorus 2 Battle VIP Pass.
Yep.
Straight to the Lost Zone. This will bump Isaiah up to 10. So Star Requiem will be online. Isaiah can take the prize lead.
Ooh.
What was that card kept over the... I think it was the Giratina, if I see correctly. Yes, it was. The Giratina in the back of the hand, so can at least get that down. I feel like you always have to bench that here and just bank off the fact that you could put together some more prizes. However, this is sort of where it gets a little bit weird, right? I mean, you put the Giratina V down. That's an easy target for your opponent to boss and knock out. And then from there, you don't have a win con to win the following turn because you have no way to deal 310.
Indeed, and now over on James' side, we have seen his hand, and he's holding 2 power tablets already, and he can V-Star for the 3rd, so he could actually immediately take down that Giratina V-Star combined with an Iono without even needing to use any of the Genesects, which is really, really impressive here.
Yeah, I guess without Choice Belt being in the deck, it is probably just better to go after this Giratina V-Star. But, I mean, assuming Choice Belt is in the deck, then you could save those power tablets right for later, but not an option for James. This Giratina V-Star is the eminent threat up in the active spot. But here we go. 11 cards in the Lost Zone. We know what's coming, Pablo. Star Requiem. This attack is insane. You just knock out your opponent's active Pokemon, and that being a 3-price Pokemon, that's an excellent trade and an excellent advantage for Isaiah.
Right, further thinning the deck with that extra Mirage Gate, but we are definitely going to see this Star Requiem onto the VMAX. Now, James has the perfect response, and this tech thinning very important by Isaiah, but what will he be able to do with a 3-card hand afterwards? The key piece here will be the Psychic Energy. We just saw the Mirage Gate, but no Psychic Energy attached over here. That could be huge.
I think the last one might be in the hand, if not in the price cards. Yep, does still have access to it in the hand, so it's not an unavailable resource. And there it is. Star Requiem, UV Max going down. Isaiah answering back. 3 prize cards taken. And this is a big turn here for James. Can he find a way to knock out this Giratina V-Star? Maybe combine with a Disruption, and look at this hand.
He already has everything. He has the 2 power tablets, he has the Iono, and that's why I was talking about the Psychic, because this Psychic, if the Iono gets played, is going down to the bottom of the deck. And with 2 Mirage Gates played, 2 Nest Balls played, even shuffling the deck could be a problem for Isaiah to get that out of there.
And that last power tablet is in the deck, and you're going to draw so many cards here. I think there's a good chance you don't even have to use your V-Star to get this last power tablet, and like we keep saying, having that last sort of out that Isaiah has, that final trick up your sleeve, the Iono or the Roxanne plus Path, is all James might need to do to keep pace here in this matchup.
Now, James, I believe, just used Town Store, right, in order to make sure and double check that everything that he needs is available, which is a very, very smart move. Now, I'll have to see how he sequences this, but he does have the resources available to pull this off. The one thing that you keep mentioning is those Path to the Peaks clogging up the hand. Those are the ones that we would have loved to already see hit the discard a long time ago.
See where this Forest Sealstone goes. I mean, might as well just play it down.
Yeah.
On UV, doesn't really make a difference, and that's going to sting for Isaiah. A big hand of resources, especially after you just put a Colress in the Lost Zone as well, all going to the bottom of the deck. That Psychic, like you said, the Mirage Gate as well.
The last Colress at the bottom.
Yeah.
So many good. Even the Poke Gear that Isaiah just got from the prize cards are now at the bottom of the deck. That's not to say that at the top there aren't any good cards, but there's definitely no Colress, right? And there was a Roxanne prize as well.
Yeah.
So
I don't even think that got taken off the prizes.
no, yeah, that
Still
remained
there.
prized.
So here we go. Finds the power tablet off the Iono. Forest Sealstone, we don't need you at all. We've got everything we need here already. The only thing that's missing would be this last Pokemon to put into play. When we do know the Mew V is still prized, but that can get taken. 2 cards off Fusion System. Even has the Lost Vacuum in the hand, so whether you get Iono'd, you still got that in the deck. If not, you've got this here. And at this point, I'm not actually sure if you necessarily need to bench the Genesect, and this could be, okay, Genesect coming down here. How do you feel about that, Pablo?
That takes away the option to Psychic Leap reliably, right? You can still do it, but leaving yourself after a Psychic Leap with only 1 Mew in play, this one, could be a little problematic. So we'll have to see if that ends up affecting. Yeah, it's not going to come into play this turn, but James is going to go down to 2 prizes. Isaiah might or might not be able to respond with a Lost Impact. Needs a lot. But if he does, James would love to Psychic Leap, but it would be a very, very risky Psychic Leap.
Giratina V-Star going down. That's all thanks to 3 power tablets. Perfect math. 280 damage from the Cross Fusion Strike, copying Techno Blast. It may be a Mew VMAX deck, but Genesect is helping out a ton. What do these 4 cards look like for Isaiah? Comfey coming up into the active spot. Does find the Mirage Gate.
Yep.
So that can get out the Psychic Energy, can even find Water Energy out of the deck. There is still 1 more remaining, so that will give a guaranteed pivot. There is still technically the way that you could keep the Water just to have the concealed cards option, but I guess Jet Energy will also fulfill that, so might as well just put these in play. And you've got 1 Chorus in your deck. It's kind of up to that to hit those pieces. I mean, the good thing that you have to think about here in Isaiah's position is Isaiah can't lose the game next turn.
True.
James is out of ways to amplify the damage, to take a knockout on this Giratina VSTAR. Maybe he's thinking, just do I attack this active and because my opponent put Genesect V into play, have a way to reliably get myself in this game, either by taking out the only attacker or taking 3 prizes within 2 turns.
Indeed. Now, I just realized that through Town Store, Isaiah always had a way to shuffle the deck. So I would have loved to see James just get rid of that with the Lost Vacuum that he was holding, especially since he still had the Force of Stone available. But Isaiah just trying to maximize the comp phase, trying to thin the deck as much as possible in order to find that Chorus.
And he
wow.
found it off of the first flower, selecting the last Chorus in deck.
Last Chorus.
These are big 5 cards, though. Still needs to find Giratina VSTAR. There are 2 remaining in the deck. None in the Lost Zone. Only 1 played.
Not the V,
And
not
it's
the
not
VSTAR.
Mirage Gate doesn't do anything right now. There's no energy to put back. Flower selecting's already been used. Does find switch cards, so that can allow at least 1 more to dig. And Battle Pass is 100% a certainty. We see all 4 Battle Pass now, none of them being played. And Isaiah's going to go into the tank here. What do you keep? What is not necessarily a game-impacting card, but what it helps you give yourself a little bit more of a line? And it will be that Mirage Gate kept instead.
I think a big thing that Isaiah can do here is he knows there's 4 power tablets gone, right? So there's a tool card on the Mew VMAX, there's a tool card on the Mew V. He doesn't know whether there's a choice belt or not. And would you risk it, right? Because you do know they play Lost Vacuum, so you could easily remove that Box of Disaster, attach the choice belt, and they do have the Force Seal Stone to search for either card. So is that a risk you take if you don't find the Giratina V in order to attack this Mew VMAX? Ugh. I mean, it would be a very risky play, but at the level that Isaiah plays, I would not be surprised if he took that calculated risk.
It's tough. I mean, yeah, the tool's on, but you could always Lost Vacuum the tool off and put it back on.
0 Lost Vacuums played so far.
It's hard because I feel like through lists I've seen and playing with this deck, like 80% of lists, 85 maybe play at least 1 copy of Choice Belt still.
I would say 95.
Yeah, even more than that. So it feels like at least you're not giving yourself the way to lose, but
it's
just going to be Giratina coming up. So we will just see the Giratina come up, path the peak be played down, and Isaiah's saying, listen, I'm going to hit this thing for 106 damage, and next turn, whether it's through Counter Catcher or another boss that I have, I'm going to try and just hit this as hard as possible.
Indeed, and Isaiah very smartly, very calculated risk. If you have it, you have it, right? But this is what I need to do in order to either force you to Psychic Leap away the Mew VMAX and leave yourself vulnerable with a single Mew V in play, or you don't, and you attack me with a different Mew VMAX, and then I'm holding the game-winning boss in my hand. There's
there it
the
is. Shred. 160 damage. Does James have a way to maybe disrupt the hand again? But it's hard. Isaiah's just sitting on 3 cards. They're the perfect 3 cards, but James has no way to know that at this point. Does top deck the switch, so that will reset this Mew. There is a Judge in hand. There is the guaranteed Stadium Bump, and there is the Pal Pad in hand. So that could bring back Iono if that is the choice. But, I mean, if Isaiah has 3 cards in hand, it's essentially just kind of trying to take a read on your opponent, right? Are you holding on to it? Why would you go for this play? I mean, look, if your opponent's going to attack you with this Giratina, they have to have some sort of a follow-up, right? Assuming that this energy was on the Comfey, if they had nothing, they probably would have retreated to maybe see some more cards. That's at least what I'm thinking as I'm sort of just envisioning what you would do in this spot. And it kind of comes down to a few factors. Number one is, what if that Genesect was a Mew on the bench? What if Psychic Leap was a potential? Because, I mean, 2 prizes is great for Isaiah, but it's not a game-winning strategy.
Indeed, and I mean, Psychic Leap is definitely available, right? But the issue is leaving yourself with 1 Mew. That's the big problem. So this Genesect is looking a little excessive, and the other Mew was priced, I believe. But James was taking 2 prizes, so keeping that bench space open could have been important. So I think James's goal is definitely to disrupt as much as possible, and there we see another head slip. Incredible.
On fire. Every single head slip coming through. Now, what is the choice? It looks like it will be potentially the Iono. Now, there does need to be a 2-card combination, especially if this comes through, and I think this is what James is going to do at this point. It's going to say, look, I'm going to evolve this bench Mew V into a Mew VMAX. I'm going to attack your active, and look, if you have it at this point.
Yeah, which is the same as Isaiah did, right? He was like, okay, you have it, you have it. Was that an escape rope played? No.
I think that was the discard off of, was it? Hold on, let's take a look and we'll see here. It was playing the escape rope. Now, I'm not sure I necessarily agree with this play because Isaiah can pretty confidently just send up this Radiant Greninja. It's a Pokemon that doesn't really have any impact. I mean, maybe Comfey. I feel like Comfey is probably your better choice.
I guess in the grand scheme of things, maybe it doesn't really matter. Like, you're going to take a prize card, right? So either you 2-hit KO the Giratina and you take 2 prizes in 2 turns, or you 2-hit or you take 2 prizes and you leave yourself on the boss, right? But I would have loved to see the Giratina in the active because now Isaiah will be able to dig for that boss or the counter catcher, which is available, with at least one Comfey, with at least this Comfey that has the energy.
Yeah, that's the big issue here. So maybe a little bit of an oversight from James. Isaiah going down to 3 cards. That boss put on the bottom. Does only have the 1 counter catcher available. Able to close this game out.
And no more Town Store either to shuffle the deck.
Wait, we didn't see the Lost Vacuum get played. So, okay, well, I guess now the choice is we're going to play the... Interesting choice there. I mean, you could have just seen the Lost Vacuum get played, drawing cards up, and by keeping your Forest Seal Stone, you give yourself an option, but what do you even grab? Do you grab the Lost Vacuum like you were before? Grabbing the Mew means there's no way to bump this path if there's no win condition the following turn. If there's no way to knock out this Giratina, which there's no more modifiers left, there's no way to hit 220 left in James's deck.
Indeed, and we've talked about how this path is, it's only affecting James, right? Like, if James gets rid of it and just doesn't play another path, that's fine, because Isaiah's losing the only resource right now. And even then, give yourself access to as many resources as possible. That's the ideal. So, rough situation now for James. Isaiah could find the counter catcher or not, but now James is not holding game in hand.
Comfey coming up into the active spot. Big card choice for Isaiah. Looking through the deck, this is a smart choice here from Isaiah. Knows how many cards were on the bottom, put to the bottom from Iono.
I believe there were 11 cards.
And this is a really interesting choice. Now, as we keep mentioning, counter catcher is still in the deck. There is a Roxanne in hand here for Isaiah. So the choice here, do you use this flower selecting before you play Roxanne? You give yourself an out to playing boss instead, or do you wait around? We are going to see the Giratina VSTAR come down into play. It's not too relevant at this point. It does give you a little bit more HP, so maybe a little bit more of insurance if you want to bring it into the active to end your turn. But how Isaiah navigates through this is big. We already see 30 minutes off the clock here for game 1. This has been a long back-and-forth game so far.
Isaiah counting his deck, I believe it's 11 cards, if I'm not mistaken. Might be 10 with the 4 in the hand. I'm pretty sure Isaiah is calculating how close he is to the counter catcher. Doesn't immediately slam it, so I'm guessing it wasn't found. Yeah.
Oh, what? He has it. Wait, is that?
No, it's Pokegear.
No, he has it.
Oh, he found it. Oh, there you go. He did find it.
Big find there off of the Comfey. Flower selecting, counter catcher, taking the knockout. Isaiah playing to every out, finding the pieces needed, and a long game 1 going to him, going up 1-0 here in Swiss round 5.
What a back and forth game. That Mew V being prized. And that last turn sequencing definitely could have been just hitting into the Giratina, right? Get rid of the path, or maybe keep the path, if you will. Yeah. But play it after you've Iono, because you're going to find another one. You have more copies. You'll be able to find them, get rid of the path, and you're going to be good to go. You shut down the Greninja, right? Draw, which is what you want to do, but you leave the Giratina in the active, so no flower selecting for opponent, or they have to find resources to flower select.
Yeah, and not to sort of reflect on what can't be changed, but that counter catcher would have never been found if there was no flower selecting to be able to be used. So a lesson there for James for sure. We'll reflect on that going into the next game. We'll at least get to go first. That is a big advantage, but Looking back on this, it was all about Isaiah Bradner and his Giratina VSTARs. Getting that first one into play, Star Rec would take the knockout, but James had the excellent response. Able to play 3 power tablet, 2 already in the hand, finding the last off Iono. But Isaiah, despite being put under all that pressure, remained calm, took the risk to attack with that Giratina V in the shred, and it paid off excellently, taking those last 3 prizes, a perfect 3-3 to go up 1-0 here in round number 5.
I feel like Isaiah was always right on the edge, right? His Pokemon kept getting KO'd, James was applying so much pressure, and Isaiah, off of these low card Ionos, both his and his opponents, it was just like, so close, and at the very end, the counter catcher was found. Isaiah was able to find a Colress off of Flower Select, then this counter catcher. Some pretty good draws for him in that game.
So 18 minutes left in this game, and that was a long game number 1, but I mean, both of these decks, they just have such long turns, right? With Fusion Strike system, you're always thinning it out, you're searching the deck, you're drawing cards, and you've got lots of tough decisions to make on the flower selecting. Is there a different approach given the time circumstance that you go for as James in this next game?
I mean, you really have to rush out, chase down those B Pokemon. I feel like I would love to see him be more aggressive with the discarding of the Pathway Peaks. There were definitely leftover cards clogging up his hand. But other than playing faster, I don't think there's anything you can really do, because he targeted the V Pokemon last game anyways as well, right? Except at the very end, and I feel like that at the very end might have been what cost him that very close game 1. Yeah, like it was back and forth. It was anyone's game at that point.
Truly down to the wire. That's the best part about the Pokemon TCG. You never know what's going to happen between these. James will at least be able to kick things off going first. I'm sure every Mew VMAX player wants to get things started and try and just build that hand up so far. Isaiah going second. Not sure there's really much difference you take in that in your game plan. Again, just all about getting those cards in the Lost Zone, but these opening hands are going to be important. Do we see Battle VIP passes? Do we see Pokemon? And looks like the hand is not so powerful here for James. I don't know if I saw any Battle VIP pass. We'll still be able to draw even more cards, but I mean, every mulligan that comes down is just more and more time off the clock. And I mean, to put it frankly, that's in favor of Isaiah, who's up 1-0 so far in the set.
Yeah, that is definitely something that's going up against James here. The multiple mulligans will benefit him in terms of getting that extra card, right? Maybe improve his setup, but the time being used up right now, we have 20 minutes to start off, and I think we're now down to 15 with all these mulligans.
Prizes not too bad there for James. Does have a power tablet in the prizes. It is towards the bottom, but it's one card you never want to see put away. Now there is the potential here to, again, put on that turn 2 pressure. We saw that Isaiah had sort of that extra turn. If you don't really Star Requiem maybe one turn earlier, could be a big difference. As let's find a basic Pokemon. James will get an extra mulligan card to grab, and prizes not too bad. The Giratina V-Star is really the only thing that sort of sticks out to me, because this matchup specifically, you want to rush to get those out and evolved.
Yeah, certainly. Now we see James off to races. Solid Start has a not playable Chromatic, and the other 2 energies are also clogging up his hand a little bit, so will be able to draw 1 card if he plays down the tool card. I don't like playing it down on the Genesect though. I think it would be much better on the Mew to keep those Genesects open for the future for Seal Stone.
This hand is completely unplayable. 3 energy, Chromatic passing things back.
You play 6 energy and you've already found 4 of them. That's insane.
No battle pass, not what you want to see. Is this is the sort of the most important part of playing these Lost Zone decks, is this first turn sequencing. We saw Isaiah had Nest Ball in hand, but chose not to play it in favor of trying to draw into more of those basic Pokemon. Will be the first flower selecting, does get rid of Psychic Energy. And wow, there's really not much going on, but actually did find Colress off of the flower selecting, it seems. So again, not playing Nest Ball, trying to just find as many basics as possible off these 5 cards from Colress's experiment.
Now we are seeing Isaiah take a look at those 5 cards.
Wow. These are not the cards you want to see. No Pokemon, in fact. Not getting rewarded at all for keeping that Nest Ball in the hand. And now you kind of have a decision. What do you want to grab off your only Pokemon search? You've used your flower selecting. You still have your attachment, but you get 1 Pokemon here. Which one is it going to be?
I mean, I don't think now is the time for a B-Seeking, and then Isaiah is going to be very thorough with his deck search. I feel like you have to go for Comfey. If you go into a B-Seeking, you're just making it easier for your opponent to beat you, right? You're accelerating their win condition. and with no backup Giratinas, there's no point really. So you'd rather just take it cool, one prize to your opponent, and then move on from there.
Greninja could be another option as well. There is sort of a niche situation with Greninja where if you do put it in the active spot for some reason, it does not get knocked out by a Psychic Leap for 70, but with the Jet Energy in hand, it seems like you might as well get more use out of the Jet Energy and put that into the active instead.
Yeah, certainly. Now, interesting that James's hand is not great, but because he does have both fusion energies, we could see a Psychic Leap KO in a Comfey next turn. That would be pretty funny to see.
And it's good to just not put the VMAX in play. You give yourself more options down the line, and less of those 3-prize Pokemon you put into play, the more you sort of want to force Isaiah into that not 3-3 strategy, because we saw how efficient it was to just over the course of 4 attacks, or 3 attacks even, just take 6 prizes, and that's what you want to see as a player. So it will be Comfey grabbed. Here we go. 2 cards off Flower Selecting. If no Giratina V come down, it's like resetting a turn because it's going to be even easier, as we saw, to take those knockouts onto the 220 HP. Jet Energy in, bringing this Comfey up. What are these 2 cards? I feel like if it's passed, you probably slam it down. We've seen Isaiah be extra thorough through all these decisions.
Yep.
It's a Psychic Energy. Wow.
Both players drawing a lot of energies.
So it will be the path down, but with how James's hand looks right now, at least has the fusion and a big top deck there. Finds the judge. This will reset the big hand size that Isaiah put together, leaving him with just 1 Pokemon in play because the perfect math from double fusion energy, Psychic Leap, 70 damage. Goodbye, Comfey.
Yeah, so I mean, you don't need a Mew VMAX, right? What you need is to take 1 prize card. How you do it, that doesn't matter. And with no threat of Giratina, no threat of even Cramorant, right? 4 cards in the Lost Zone could be problematic, but I mean, there's a chance Isaiah doesn't find another basic Pokemon of this judge and just gets locked out of this game thanks to this charge. So we'll have to see what he draws. It's a low chance, but there is a chance that happens.
Yeah, and with Path being in play, a card like Radiant Greninja won't bail you out. I mean, I would even like James to just not play Path. You don't really need to dig with Genesect here. Just take the knockout. Nothing's really threatening you. And I mean, I wouldn't even play the Crim. I would probably just like hold this hand out. I mean,
fold.
Rope is a potentially good card if your opponent just puts Giratina V into play. It essentially acts as a boss to gust it up. And you see James sort of tapping the cards on the table, thinking, what else do I need, right? This sort of is like your checklist you go with as a Pokemon player. Okay, do I have my energy attachment? Yes. Can I attack? Yes. Can I take prizes? Yes.
Yeah,
and
all good. No need to overplay cards. Exactly. Comfey gone. Isaiah just going to see his cards. Does find a Battle VIP pass, which is obviously not helpful. Does have a Sableye, though, but not much else.
I don't think Scratch is the winning play, Pablo. I'm no expert, but here we go. 2 cards off this, and it's a Giratina V. I mean, that has to be your grab. Isaiah's going to sort of play it up. I mean, it's a pretty obvious choice. You got to get rid of the water to keep the Giratina, but
yeah.
What else do you do this turn? Is this, you can't even Abyss Seek because you're just going to reset yourself back another turn, but I think there's no other option with how poor this hand is for Isaiah. Comfey going down is the same thing essentially as Abyss Seeking, and you at least get some more cards off of that. But here it is, put in the prime position, Abyss Seeking, putting cards in the Lost Zone, but at the cost of putting this 2-prize Pokemon in play with no great response attacker for the following turn.
Indeed, Isaiah taking this, once again, calculated risk. What he saw from James last turn was very weak. So he might be banking on, okay, maybe my Giratina actually survives, right? And James's hand is not super impressive, but is holding an Iono, has that Chromatic that he did not play. We could see a quick KO here, and with 10 minutes left on the clock, and wow, another big top deck, the Forest Seal Stone. Doesn't even need to play the Iono now.
Show me another heads here. Oh my, James says, I'm only going to get the card out. He's been playing 4 computer searches the entire deck, just finding every card that's needed. I mean, at this point, you kind of, I think, just evolve into Mew VMAX. You even have Iono in hand, so you might as well, again, try and preserve this Forest Seal Stone, play Iono, and all you need to find here off of this is either the modifier, and actually, I mean, maybe it's just not as simple just to find the Lost Vacuum to just give yourself more of a potential to draw into this. I mean, I don't hate that either necessarily, but I'm not quite sure.
You have the guaranteed Mew VMAX. I feel like what I don't want to see James play is the Iono. You have to read that Isaiah's draw from Judge was not very powerful, right? So I would really love it if he didn't play that Iono. I would also understand if he did, right? Just to give himself the most amount of cards available to make sure that he finds the 2 pieces that he does need right now. He has 1 guaranteed with the Forest Seal Stone, but he still needs Mew VMAX and Power Tablet to get this KO.
I mean, in this position, is sort of how I'm seeing it is you kind of don't really even care what Isaiah does for the rest of the game, right?
True,
you take this
true.
knockout, Giratina V comes down, boss, take a knockout onto it, and then you're at one prize, right? What
Two
a
Pokemon drawn. Wow, incredible Fusion Strike system by Genesect. Just, I mean, I feel like we might not see that Iono because of how good this is. And are we going to see another?
Flip it again. I need to see it. Oh, what has this been,
It's
5
a
so far?
computer search.
Yeah, this is computer search over here. That card shouldn't even say flip and hit tails. Okay. We jinxed it. Caster curse.
we
Commentator
jinxed
curse.
it. Sorry, James, we jinxed it.
And you see our players sort of laughing about it too. Like, come
It's
on.
the
I
first tails, yeah, we've seen. I would love,
just-
to see this Lost Vacuum. Get rid of the Box of Disaster. Yeah, keep drawing, maximize your draw. Just don't play that Iono. That's like the #1 rule this turn.
this has been a great adjustment. James really not valuing those paths in this game, and you see it paying dividends. Having all these cards that you want so far in your hand. Here we go. 4 cards off of this. What do we see?
Oh, neither card found
Yeah.
though. Still, I think we're gonna have to see the Iono.
Yeah, but this is
No
kind of
other
tough. This is
choice.
kind of tough here. You got to play the Iono, and you've got no way to draw. So you've got to find either the VMAX or the Power Tablet. If
So
you
you've
can find
got
one of
Forest
those
Seal
two,
Stone.
then
Yep.
Forest Seal Stone, of course. There is the potential to find both of those. But,
Yeah.
I mean, listen, we've been seeing a lot of great draws here for James. If there's one more game that close things out, we'll have to see it here. 5 cards. Do we see it?
We do see an Ultra Ball to be able to fetch that Mew VMAX and then could try to flip once again, but I feel like that would be a little overdoing it. I think
Yeah.
you'd want to keep the Lost Vacuum in case another path comes down.
Okay, if James hit heads on the previous Chromatic, I think you kind of got to play to the I'm going to flip 8 heads. And
Yeah.
I got the best card in the format in my deck right now. So
There's a Mew VMAX. James about to flip over his VSTAR. Gonna go grab that Power Tablet and eliminate this Giratina from the board, leaving Isaiah very bare bones. 6 minutes on the clock with the plus returns. If Isaiah ends up benching another Giratina, I feel like it's possible for James to close out this game, even if it doesn't, depending on how quick James plays out the rest of his turns, because like Isaiah either plays to not lose at this point or tries to win by benching another Giratina and then somehow taking a knockout on a Mew VMAX. On 2 Mew VMAXs, rather.
So as we said, it's sort of like the worst case scenario. You give Isaiah a fresh new card, a hand of 6. There's no Colress in here yet, but of course does have lots of ways to dig through the deck. We see the Pokegear card that Isaiah's been playing in this Giratina deck for quite some time now, since he sort of has pivoted around throughout decks. Of course, played Palkia for the 2022 season, a variety of decks last year, and sort of found his home with this Giratina deck.
Yeah, has been sticking with it for this whole season, it seems, so far. I don't think he has played as many events as he has in the past, but I feel like Giratina is his go-to deck, and other than Counter Catcher, the deck didn't change much from Paradox Rift.
Now, Isaiah has built up a pretty sizable Lost Zone, thanks to, as well, that Lost Vacuum putting the Path to Peak in play, in the Lost Zone. So will put Isaiah up to 10 cards. Did attach and retreat, so Sableye can at least start putting some pressure onto these Pokemon. It does find another Giratina V-Star into the Lost Zone. Just really thinking I'm going to have one last out to get there. Now, these are big 7 cards, though, off this Pokegear. Do we see Colress as a way to dig through? And we do. Colress found off the 7 cards off Pokegear. Will allow Isaiah to dig a little further. Maybe for something like that Mirage Gate to get an attack going. Does also need to find a pivoting option because, as Comfey has retreated, to be able to use both of these flower selectings.
I think a pretty big tell that Isaiah is probably not going to focus too much on winning this game and rather trying to stop James from winning in time would be the second Giratina that just hit the Lost Zone. I think that's a pretty big tell that now Isaiah only has access to 1, right? How can you finish out a game with 1 Giratina V-Star? It's really difficult to take 6 prizes off of a single one. So we'll have to see how he plays out. He has counter catchers, right? He has Boss's Orders to try and make James whiff. That's his goal right now. Try to make James not attack him as much as possible.
So Comfey comes down. Colress will join as well. Lost Zone, plenty of cards. So again, I mean, let's look at the clock here. We're just under 4 minutes left in time. It's going to take James another 3 turns to win this out. I mean, these players sort of have a general idea, right? Time is winding down, but if you're not aware of the clock, you kind of have to have this instinct of, I don't need to fusion system and draw everything at this point. If my opponent's not going to put Pokemon in play and play to their optimal strategy, I'm just going to attack, take prizes, and that's going to be enough for me to win this game.
Now, does lost on another Colress and a Jet. Does keep the path to a peak, does have that counter catcher, so I think that's going to be Isaiah's strategy, especially now that James in this game, as opposed to the previous game, has already lost 2 lost vacuums. So that could be pretty big. Doesn't know that James is holding one already, but that could be a way that Isaiah tries to make sure that he's able to stall out James and prevent him from attacking continually over and over.
So Mirage Gate getting played, Sableye powered up, 10 cards in the Lost Zone, more than enough. I believe more now with that Colress being played, but the 10 card limit has been hit, so we will be seeing a Lost Mine into play. Switch as well, but actually just going to continuously use Comfey to just flower selecting, take more actions, Battle Pass going to the Lost Zone. Do you even attack here if you're Isaiah? I mean, and what does putting damage on the board do? And yeah, it's just going to be a pass over. So, I mean, as James, what do you really even do at this point? We'll play Featherball, does still have access to abilities, and I mean, with 2 Mew VMAX in play, it becomes even easier to knock out these low HP Pokemon because now Max Miracle is an option, Techno Blast, or rather Cross Fusion copy Max Miracle is an option, but it's got to be just sort of put the gas on, and there will be a way to slow this hand down for both players. That does put Isaiah's hand back in, both players drawing 4 cards, but I mean, there's 2 minutes left. So as long as James can take a knockout this turn before 2 minutes
before the turn is over,
then
right?
he can win this game.
Yeah, indeed. Now, I love this power tablet being played because James knows he doesn't need that, right? He just needs to attack 3 times. There's 3 good enough targets. Didn't find a double turbo, though. That's the big card that he's missing. So getting rid of that, I would play the power tablet. Yeah.
Oh, this is so tough. I mean, you kind of just got to play everything here. So, I mean, you got to just Lost Vacuum, get rid of probably the
That's
judge.
a Cramomatic target, right? Yeah, so need to get rid of the judge.
Yeah.
All right, 3 more cards. There's a double turbo, 2 double turbos. So
perfect.
That's really good for James to potentially retreat. Now, I think Isaiah is building up to a Roxanne counter catcher path to a peak play. And we do the Max Miracle, and there's a knockout. So James will have enough turns to close this out. The question is, will he be able to after Isaiah disrupts his hand?
Isaiah drawing for turn. Most likely will be turn 0. But, I mean, just kind of playing through the actions, playing with how he can. But, I mean, Isaiah does not have a way to win this game, really. Not in a reasonable sense. I mean, you've got the Comfey in play. You can put more cards in the Lost Zone, but Sableye, it's not going to cut it for you, especially when you've only got 1 in play, especially when these VMAX Pokemon have 310 HP. We could get in there with the spinning attack, though, for some style points. Listen, okay, Pablo, you played this deck with Rayquaza before. Did you spinning attack when you top 8'd that regionals?
Not at that regionals, but the amount of times I've used spinning attack. And you know what? It's very common as of late because of Roaring Moon. I think Roaring Moon EX is like they self-KO against a Giratina VSTAR. Bop goes the spinning attack from Comfey, and that's how you take knockouts with your single prizer sometimes. I think it's a pretty cool way to do so.
Isaiah just playing cards out. There is already the Roxanne and the counter catcher in hand, so it looks to me like a prime Genesect target to bring up. It does have boss's orders. I mean, you don't even need to grab anything here because we're just going to see those Roxanne. 2 cards getting played. So counter catcher up the Genesect and Roxanne being played. And we did also see the Lost Vacuum get played as well. I think you've got how many Lost Vacuum are down? I haven't seen the Town Store get played down yet, so that is still a potential. And I believe there are still 1 or 2 Lost Vacuum left, but I mean, this is what it's going to come down to. Isaiah has pretty much said, listen, I'm going to make it as hard as possible for you to win the game. I'm not trying to win myself at this point, but I'm going to bring these Pokemon up. I'm going to try and disrupt you. Can you attack 2 turns in a row? And for me, this is the big turn here. If you can get this Genesect out of the active spot, you leave Isaiah with just 1 card potential to get in there, and that being boss's orders means your hand also can't get disrupted the same turn. You can keep those cards and give yourself a bigger out.
Indeed. Now, we have the flowers like the triple energy Comfey is so funny to look at. But
it's like there's going to be like a Thornton or something. It's going to pop out, Giratina V, Star Requiem, you're done. Get out of here.
Now, if time weren't an issue, right? If we hadn't run out of time already, I feel like Isaiah would definitely have a chance at winning this game, right? If James gets stuck enough turns, right, you can lost mine eventually, enough times to make sure that James, that you take 6 prizes, right? You can make this comeback. How realistic that is before James draws another way to retreat, right? Whether it's a double turbo, a switch, an escape rope, not super likely depending on James's size of the deck, but definitely a possibility.
So here we go. 3 cards here for James. And this is what it comes down to. Finds the double turbo energy. That will allow this Genesect to retreat. And all of a sudden, it's going to be on Isaiah again to trap a Pokemon up. New VMAX comes up. That can copy the Max Miracle on the bench. So you've got now this active that can attack. You've got the benched Mew VMAX that can attack. Path does stay in play, though. Doesn't really draw anything impactful. Now, what is there off of this card? There's no boss's orders. That only one copy of Counter Catcher could come back to bite Isaiah in this game. It's all going to come down to this. I don't think there's any way to put beneficial cards in the deck. I don't think there's Pokegear left, really. That could be a potential card you find off this, but here we go. Flower selecting 2 cards. What do we see? It's Escape Rope and a Giratina V. That's not what you necessarily want to see.
Well, no, definitely not. But Giratina V is another option that Isaiah has, right?
Yeah.
Because he can retreat into that Giratina and hope that James doesn't
There's
have
no power
either a
tablet,
boss
yeah.
or escape rope or power tablet. And I do believe all 4 power tablets have been exhausted already. So
have all 4 been gone?
I believe so, yeah.
Wow.
I'm not 100% sure. There were definitely 2 used up in that turn where we were digging for that double turbo. So it could be that. And the double Giratina actually plays around
the escape rope. That's true.
So boss's orders could be the only card that James can actually top deck, or a Lost Vacuum. You see the
Here
pass.
we go. Show me the
turn,
magic.
Double turbo, I believe. So if it had been the boss, James might have won. But I don't think there's a way for James to take a knockout here.
No. So that was a big flower selecting. Rope is another card that you give it out to, but sort of playing those Giratina down early, I think we'll maybe get to see one more search in the deck, but doesn't matter at this point. 2 of these Giratina V's standing in play. The last turn of time, I mean, you can retreat into this 10 damage short with the cross fusion strike, and 10 damage short is 10 damage too little. James unable to close out this game. Isaiah Bradner winning this series 1-0, a long game 1. Not playing to the win game 2, but listen, it's how you got to play to win. That's how Isaiah played this series out, going to advance to 5-0, still undefeated here at San Antonio.